ברכי נפשי es Hashem. Perek Shvi, the chapter 9, some word of introduction. Chapter 9 focusing on the Hilchot Shabbat, and in a way it's continuation of our discussion at the very end of chapter 7 and continuing on chapter 8. What's the minimum measurement for the small amount of items that we are liable, the Torah make it as liable, or the rabbis made it liable for carrying them from one domain to another. But before that, there are 7 subjects that related to that matter, just in a sense of using the term minayin le. How do we know? So even the focusing in that sense, dealing, for example, of a brit, of circumcision on Shabbat, which is later in the 86. But here, since they use that term minayin le, so they're using it for other questions as well. So you may wonder, when we about to study this chapter, a lot of subjects relate to Tahara, purity, about idol worshippers, Avodah Zarah, and he said, what this has to do with Shabbat? So as we said, that since we use this term minayin le, how do you know what? They use it also in other subjects, because that term it's used. Now we're about to focus on the Mishnah, which is on page 82a, on the very bottom of the page. The Torah, some word of introduction for the Mishnah. The Torah did not tell us specifically and clearly that idolatry transmits tum'ah, the impurity. So the sages put a special decree that involved with impurity with regard to idolatry. So here the first question Rabbi Akiva asked, minayin le, how do you know? Amar Rabbi Akiva. So again, this is dealing with the law of impurity in regards to Avodah Zarah, for idolatry. Amar Rabbi Akiva, minayin la'avodah zarah shemetam'a betum'at masa kenida. In other words, how do you know the deity, the status of the idol worshipping? It's transmitted impurity the same way as a woman that is a nida, menstruating woman, does. So let's understand. There are several status of impurity which we studied in the past, such as a man's that have a discharge is called zav or zava, it's a female, a touch to a dead animal, it's called nevela, or women in a certain period of time. So here the Torah said that if someone carries them, it's already even he's not in a sense of touching them. Imagine you carry your knapsack, and in your knapsack you have a dead animal. So by just carrying them, it's already called tum'at masa, the carrying of impurity. So Rabbi Akiva here is dealing with the source, the whole idea of using and worshipping idol, that the sages said that it's carry impurity, how that happened. So he said, how do you know minayin la'avodah zarah, from where is it derived that avodah zarah, idolatry, shemetam'ah, that the person who carries it became impure bemasa, and while he is carrying it on his back, the same as just as a nida. So shene'emar. So Isaiah said in the future, in Isaiah 30, he said that it will be a time that the children of Israel were basically disgusted idol worshipping. In other words, they stay away from all of that. He speaks about a future. So he used the term tizrem kemo dava צא תאמר לו. So he said that it will be a time that the nation of Israel will cast them away. As you will, a ministry woman, Dava, you will tell it, get out. So in other words, he tried to express a feeling that people will stay away from that idol worshipping. If you remember when we read in Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, about Jacob, he asked when they departed from the house of Laban, he said, Hasiru Elokei Zahav, etc. So take away all this idol from you in order to be purified. So because this text in the book of Isaiah compare idolatry to Nida, we learn Ma Nida. Nida is a woman in her period, right? Ma Nida metam'a b'masa, the same way as Nida transmit impurity imparted by carrying. Af avodah zara metam'a b'masa, the same way idolatry transmit impurity imparted by carrying. So this is called an hekesh, that the sages put it in a connection to avodah zara, to idol worship. So here Rabbi Akiva hold, because they compare and they put the sentence together between idol worship to nida, so it turns that that's decree applied to both, that worship idol make a person impure the same as nida. So the truth is, the Mishnah just speaks about Rabbi Akiva, but there are others in different locations that speak also in idol worshipping, and they said that it's not carry impurity when you carry them. But soon the GEMARA bring the whole disputation and explain it. Now, the whole concept of a Mishnah is hekesh, meaning you juxtapose the two texts and you compare them together. Now, it's just as a side note, you have here Rashi and a Tosfot in the previous page that ask a question, what this has to do with Shabbat? And they explain the whole idea of minayin, how to. Tosfot have something more in elaboration of that in the previous page. You're welcome to read it. So now the GEMARA want to express this halachot of idolatry and the impurity. It goes beyond the Tractate of Shabbat. So they speaks about the impurity of idol worshipping. Nanatam. They said in the Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 47a. Mi shehaya kotlo, it's a Rashi said that his wall, samuch la'avodah zara. In other words, you live in a house, and one side of the wall it's your, let's say, apartment or your room, and the other one is for idol worshipping. So basically, you are sharing a wall, a kotel, that one side of that kotel is for idol worship. So he said, Venafal, and that wall collapse, right? Asur livnoto. There is a concept, it's called mehane avodah zara, that you can cause this idol worshipper to derive some joy from that. In other words, you are partaking. So it's important to know that the Me'irin, Fatemet, and many of the Meforshim said that originally speaking, when the fellow Jew did it with these idol worshippers, they didn't. It was not intent to make it as an idol worshipping house. What happened is, originally speaking, it was an issue of building it because it was just building together a house that have a sharing wall in both sides. Later, that neighbor turned to be idol worshipper, and he used that wall as part of his need for idol worship. So it means that if now, since that wall collapsed, if the fellow Jew will help rebuild it, what he's doing basically, he's partaking of what? Of idol worshipping. Mm-hmm. So what case Tadia said? So the Gemara asked, what should do now? What should one do? So they said, Kones letoch shelo 400. So the minimum side of a house, it's called makom, of 4 cubits. If you remember, we studied in Brachot 18. So since he could not build that wall in the original place, so the rabbi is required to have a space between his wall and the wall of the idol worshipping. So he said, כונס לתוך שלו 400 ובונה. So this is a rabbinic decree, גזירה מדרבנן, that he, in that sense, will not cause any even joy from idol worshipping, because he moves 4 cubits into his own land and builds the wall there. So basically it's like kones, he is just moves dalet amot, 4 cubits. So Rashi said here, שהיה אותו כותל מחיצה אף לבית עבודה זרה, אסור לבנותו דרכמהן לעבודה זרה. That's also Tosfot said. The minute you're building it, you cause the other fellow or the other side, the idol worshipper, to drive joy from the avodah zarah. So we just turned the page 82b, and they said haya shelo v'shel avodah zarah. So you have this wall that stood in the ground and belongs to him and the house of idol worshiping. So let's understand it. Rashi tells us שהיה חצי מקום הכותל של עבודה זרה. It's clear that a Jew cannot build with idol worshipper together a wall in order for partially or fully to use it for idol worshipping. But again, you have to remember that the Mishna speak here with the situation that originally it was not an avodah zarah. They just built it, as a sharing townhouse, sharing a wall from 2 neighbors, and only later, as the Meiri said, later this fellow neighbor decided to change it and make it to idol worshipping.
Okay.
So he joined that group, and they have all these things. So now what we should do? So they said nidon mechza al mechza. So this wall we divided to 2. Since we talk about 4 cubits, so altogether are 4. The sages require him to distance. But half of that spot for idol worshipping, it's not considering his, because he is distanced himself in the 4 cubits. So they said, if that wall was in the 2 handbreadth, so he put 1 handbreadth from that wall, and he built there the wall. Okay? Now, not everyone agree with this Rashi. The Ritva disagree with him because he said that it still have some deriving of joy, but again, we're dealing here just the basic pshat. אבניו ועציו ואפריו מטמאים בשרץ. Its stones, which means the stones that come out of the wall, and its wood and its dots from the house of idolatry, transmit impurity like creeping animals. And again, this is rabbinic decree, Gzerat Chachamim. And they said that, again, they tum'at maga, that touching that animal, it's transmitted, but not tum'at masah, which is carrying that. So the same as the sherets. So it's only Rashi said on Bereshit, the very beginning of Bereshit, that anything that it's higher than the ground, but you don't see him, you don't clearly see that he's walking, it's called sherets, which means it's a small side. Shene'emar, they said, in regard to idol worshipping, they said, shaketz teshaktzenu. Shaketz teshaktzenu, it's like sherets. They said here that you should, shaketz teshaktzenu, you should utterly detested it. and you shall utterly abhor it, and you for it the banner object. So sheketz is a term used with regard to creeping animals. So he said here, this hekesh is not the full hekesh, is not comparison, but it's asmachta, which means because this line in the pasuk express of the distance from idol worshipping, so that's the reason why they attach this line. Rabbi Akiva said that idolatry kenida, that idolatry transmits impurity like a nida. Shenema, they said in Isaiah 30, Tizrem kemo davar. They said that you will cast them away as you will do it for davar, menstruating women. Ma nida metam'a b'masa af avodah zara metam'a b'masa, just as a nida transmit impurity imparted by carrying, right? Because when one moves a nida without touching her, becomes impure. So too idolatry transmit impurity imparted by carrying. So here you see a few important points. What is the impurity that involved with idol worshipping? So the big question here is that biblical or rabbinic? If you go by the first one, by the Tanakama, that's the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva, that's the big machloket. If you go by the Rabbanan, they make it in a hekesh. They compare. If you go by the Rabbi Akiva, so they said the metameh b'magav masar, it's impure when you attach or when you're carrying, and you make a hekesh to nida. The same way you do by nida. So it means that what Rabbi Akiva said in the Mishnah, that idol worshipping it become impure by carrying it, it's a dispute. So now you see here the elaboration on that we start with Rabbah, who said as follow: Amar Rabbah tizrem de Amar Kra. When the Rabbah said that, when the verse said you will cast them away, it means nakrihu minach kezar, which means because they use this term tizrem kemodava, so it means that you should cast them away, apply to idol worshipping, make them foreign to you like a stranger. So, and then he said at the end, what he said, Tzed tomarlo, you will tell it, get out. Hikanes al tomarlo, means you under no circumstances you may say it, come in, which is the pestle to the idol worshipping. So the Marshal said that this line, this pasuk, come to teach us that we should distance in any way we can from idol worshipping, as much as we can. Another thing, Ve'amar Rabbah, is another thing Rabbah said, B'masa, which means any impurity that the person carrying, the kule alma lo pligei, meaning both the sages and Rabbi Akiva agreed, the mitam'a, that idol worshipping transmitted, that transmit impurity. So in other words, the person who carry it can be impure. Deha itkash lenida, because we compare it to nida, meaning because we use the nida, the pasuk tizrem kemodavad, for carrying it. Ki pligei, the big machloket between Chachamim and sages and Rabbi Akiva, it's only if that idol worshipping while carrying apply to be'even mesama, that apply only to a very heavy stone. What does that mean? So they said that there is a special law with regard to a zav and the nida. If they sit on an object, even the object cannot become ritually impure, and beneath that object is a vessel. So they said that is no effect of the vessel, but the person become impure, ritually impure. Even mesama, it's basically a line in the book of Daniel, chapter 6, that said, "Ve'heitait," meaning you brought even chada, a sharp meat, vesumat al punguba, which means that the place that the Yavesh wants to put Daniel. So that's called even mesama. So this stone that puts on the top of Yetedot, big controversy is that the person or the vessels under that stone, it become impure by carrying, even that most of the heavy weight of that idol, it's not on that part, but it's still transmitted. Rabbi Akiva Savar Kenida, Rabbi Akiva hold that that's the same apply, that impurity of idolatry is like impurity of nida. How nida metam'a be'even mesama, for avodah zara metam'a be'even mesama, which means Rabbi Akiva hold that even to that subject, the hekesh, it's compared between idol worshipping and nida. So, V'Rabanan Savri, and the sages said, Kesheretz. They said that it's the same as a creeping animal. Ma sheretz lo metameh be'even mesama. The same way, just as a creeping animal does not transmit impurity to the heavy stone, af avodah zara lo metamah be'even mesama. So the same apply, that the idolatry that not transmit impurity to the very heavy stone. So what we understand, that idol can become impure by carrying. So again, let's wrap it up and understand. There are different tum'ot, different impurity. We don't deal with all of them, but deal some of them. One, it's called sheretz. Tumat sheretz is a creeping animal that metameh b'magad. The minute you touch it, you become impure. The same is nogea b'sheretz. Now, if you carry a knapsack, for example, and you have a dead creeping animal there, so it's not become impure by carrying it. That's the sages. They said, with it's a dead animal, hanoset nivlata, that someone who carrying, the one who carrying it become impure. In nida, so the law of nida apply to both maga and masa, touching and carrying. Now, with even mesama, with that special stone, that's basically machlokit, a different opinion between Rashi and Tosfot. Why? Because Rashi said, "V'kol asher yeh tachtav tameh," anything that under that stone become impure. So if there is a even al sfat habor, if it's the stone at the top of that pit, whatever is inside the pit, kol ma shebabor tameh, everything that is inside that pit become impure. So that's tum'ah me'aguf, that it's impure from the body, because the zav, the person who have a discharge, sitting on that stone. Meiri, however, he said that you don't need that attachment. He says that anything that under the zav, it's already considering part of that. Not everyone agreed. The Rishonim hold that it's only if he attached to something, if he touch it. So Tosfot here said that if it's if there is a very heavy stones and the zab sitting on that, it makes no difference. So anyway, back to our subject. We said here, le Rabbi Akiva. According to Rabbi Akiva, that said that what? That hold that impurity of idolatry is similar to the nida in all aspects. So what exactly the halacha that we juxtapose of creeping animal? So they said, lemeshamshea. So it's applied to all of its accessories, object that use for the purposes of idolatry. So this is like, there are other things, because the repeat the sentence Ritva said, shaketz te shaktzenu, you should discuss it. So that's applied to all these accessories of idol, and not the idol itself. Meaning the idol worshipping, it's compared not to creeping animal, but compared to nida. So now the Gemara asks for this opinion of the sages. They said, so in what area they compare it to nida? According to the sages, they said, le-masa, the person who carry it. ולא כשרחמנא לנבלה. So we should compare it to what? To a creeping animal. So what's that is that it's becoming pure by carrying, but it's not becoming pure from Evan Mesama. So he said, En achename, it's true, Ela manida eina le'evarim, just as a nida does not transmit impurity to our limbs, which means that limb of the nida is supposed, the Ravid said, supported by a vessel. The vessel does not become ritually impure. That's the famous Ravid. So he said here, Af avodah zara eina le'evarim, which means that if something that it was idolatry, but if the vessel's part of an idol, it's departed. In other words, they made it out of pieces that attach to each other. So if it's departed, it's not carrying impurity of idol worshipping. So that's the reason why the Torah needs to compare it to nida, in order to teach us that you need this hekesh for both, for creeping animal and also for even mesama. So they ask a question, ve'ela hadebai Rav Chama bar Guria, what Rav Chama bar Guria said in 83, avodah zara yeshna le'evarim o ela le'evarim, tifshot le'me'al le'rabanan ena le'evarim. So he said, does idolatry have the capacity to transmit impurity to limbs or not? So he said, you resolve the question. So they said, yes, for this, we're going to according to the rabbi, that does not transmit impurity to the limbs. So the Gemara replied, and said, Rav Chama bar Guria alibad Rabbi Akiva ba'ele. Here, Rav Chama bar Guria go by the Akiva, which means that according to Rabbi Akiva, that hold that this hekesh of idolatry is juxtaposed to nida, that she become impure toward even mesama, which means that so therefore this hekesh, this juxtaposition is applied to make the stringencies in a sense of the impurity of idol worshipping, but not to make it lenient. So why we compare it to nida? To teach us in regard to those limbs. So they said, Rabbi Lazar amar be'even mesama dekulam alo plige de lo metama. So he said that Lazar said, with regard to very heavy stone, everyone agreed that idolatry does not transmit impurity. Why? So Rashi said, because the creeping animal, it's making you impure only by touching it, but not by carrying it. Ki plige b'masa. The big machloket, the big disputation is for carrying, that the person who carry it. Rabbi Akiva savar kenida. Rabbi Akiva hold that this idol worshipping is the same as nida, which means ma nida metam'a b'masa. The same way as nida became impure for carrying some loaded items, af avodah zara metam'a b'masa. So this is again, what happened here is the second explanation of this machloket between Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbanan Savri and the sages hold that idol worshipping is kesheretz, the same as creeping animal. Ma sheretz lo metame b'masa, avodah zara lo metame b'masa. The same way as creeping animal not carry impurity by carrying it. So the same idolatry. So now Rabbi Akiva lema hilchata itkach shel sheretz. So according to Rabbi Akiva, why we compare it to a creeping animal? So he said, lim sham she'ah, the same way as we said earlier, it's applied to what? To accessories. So he said, what is that? He said that does not transmit impurity through carrying. So he said, Rabbanan, למה הלכתה הלקש לנידה. And according to the sages, with regard to what halacha was idolatry juxtaposed to nida. So it's important to know that since, according to the sages, the idolatry, it's not become transmitted impurity only if you touch it, the same as the creeping animal. So why you need to compare it to nida? So they said, ma nida ena le'evarim. The Gemara respond the same way as nida does not transmit impurity toward her limbs. So they said, af avodah zarah ena le'evarim. So to idolatry does not transmit impurity to its limb. Now, it's important to know that according to Rabbi Lazar that he disagreed, Even Mesama, he compared two sherets. That means that it's not, Even Mesama not become impure. The big question is, the big machloket is in regard to Tumat Masa, that you're carrying it. Rabbanan said that it's the same as the creeping animal, the same as sherets. Rabbi Akiva said that it's the same as Nida. The same way as Nida become impure for someone who's carrying it, these two become impure for someone's carrying. So why we compare it that way? So just a little bit from the next page, page Gimel, the top of 83. Rabbi Akiva, lema hilcheta ilkash lenida. So here we say that according to Rabbi Akiva, why we compare it to nida? So because not compared to Even Mesama. Lelamdeinu b'masa. So it's going to teach us the same as masa, the same as carrying it. What that he said that lokshei lin vela. Why we not compare it to what? To a dead animal. So he said enachiname lamanida le'evarin avodah zara le'evarin. The same way as the nida, it does not transmit impurity to her limbs. So this is a nida who leans on an object by a single limb does not transmit impurity imparted by carrying. That's the rival. So too an idol does not transmit impurity to its limb. Now, the GEMARA asks a question. אלא דבאי רב חמא בר גוריא עבודה זרה ישנה לאיברים או שאינה לאיברים תפשוט למאה בין רבנן בין רבי עקיבא דאינה לאיברים. So basically he said that does idolatry have the capacity to transmit impurity to the limbs or does not? So he said according to Rabbi Akiva it's not transmit to the limb. So it means that Rabbi Akiva agree with the sages. So now, so why Rabbi Chama bar Gurya did not come to that conclusion? So now it's a conclusion. It says Rabbi Chama bar Gurya k'Rabba matnei u'ba'ila aliba de Rabbi Akiva, which means Rabbi Chama bar Gurya taught according to this explanation that Rabbi raised the dilemma according to opinion of Rabbi Akiva. So what we understand, let's wrap up this part. It says this machloket, this disputation between Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva, they compare it to sherets, to a creeping animal, and to nida. That's according to Rabbah. That according to everyone, maga, masa, carrying and touching it, but it's not even mesama. It's not make it impure. So you see here the source of this machloket between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan, and tomorrow B'ez Hashem we elaborate on that. The first halacha we study today is the famous Rambam in Hilchot Avodah Zarah, chapter 8, and also Shulchan Aruch Yodea 143. A person have Shelo v'Shel Avodah Zarah that belong to him and to the house of idolatry. So we said that we, a fellow Jew, may derive benefit from his half of the wall shared with the house of idolatry, but he may not derive benefit from the whole that belonged to idolatry itself. So if one has a house that was adjacent to the house of idolatry, when the house is situated next to a temple of idolatry, it collapses, it's prohibited to rebuild it. If a person wants to rebuild the house, he must move it at least 4 cubits into his property, and he should fill the empty space with the thrones or rubbish to prevent the house of idolatry from assuming control on that area. So that's the conclusion that reach in Tractate Avodah Zarah, and that's the Rambam, Hilchot Avodah Zarah, chapter 8, and again Shulchan Aruch 143. Another halacha we learn in regards to nida, ena le'evarim, Avodah Zarah le'evarim, ena le'evarim. He said that ezav or nida inserted the limb into the airspace for an earthenware vessel, it does not become impure because of the zav or nida does not transmit impurity through the limbs. And for sure, all the more so, a severed limb of a nida does not transmit impurity. That's the Rambam said. A fragment severed from idolatry does not transmit impurity because idolatry only transmits impurity when there is a hole. But the halakha is, according to the lenient opinion of the rabbis, because idolatry is impure by rabbinic law. That's a famous Rambam, Hilchot Avot Atuma, and chapter 6. But again, tomorrow we're going to speak also about Shamsheh, about the accessories, because accessories of idolatry transmit impurity to contact, and therefore there is a different category of Meshamsheh Avodah Zarah.
Es Hashem